All right, so we're diving deep today, ready?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Today, it's all about those American English idioms.
Those tricky phrases.
Exactly. You know, the ones that can really throw you off if you're not a native speaker.
Like trying to solve a riddle.
Yeah, exactly. And we're using this video, it's specifically made to help non-native English speakers.
To really boost their everyday English skills.
Exactly, to sound more natural, you know?
Like they've been speaking it their whole lives.
Yeah. And the video, it promises to unpack some really, I don't know, mind-boggling phrases, I guess you could say.
Oh, yeah. Some of those expressions, they can be a real head scratcher.
Things like, bite the bullet or let the cat out of the bag.
Now, those sound like something straight out of a storybook, don't they?
Right. Imagine trying to figure those out if you were hearing them for the first time.
You'd probably be pretty lost, I think.
So it's interesting, right? Because these, like, everyday phrases,
They can actually tell us a lot about a culture.
almost like a secret code, yeah.
Yeah, like a window into how people think and what they value.
So the video, it kicks off with this phrase, break the ice.
Okay, yeah, classic.
And they're talking about, like, those first few moments of a conversation, especially when you're meeting someone new.
It's that initial awkwardness, you
I
know?
know, how do you get things going?
Exactly. How do you ease into it and make everyone feel comfortable?
It's kind of like dipping your toes in the water before you jump into the pool.
I like that analogy. Yeah, it's about testing the waters, seeing what people are like.
Right. So you don't just, like, cannonball in and make a splash.
Exactly. So what are some ways you could break the ice, do you think?
Well, I guess a compliment could work.
Yeah, like, hey, I love your shoes, or something like that.
Or maybe ask a question about, I don't know, the event you're at or something.
Right. Or maybe even a little self-deprecating humor, you know?
Oh, yeah, make fun of yourself a little bit, lighten the mood,
Exactly. The goal is just to get the conversation flowing.
make people feel at ease.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of American culture, actually.
Being friendly and approachable.
Right, even with people you've never met before.
Okay, so next up on the list, we have hit the nail on the head.
Yes, that feeling of satisfaction.
When you just say something perfect.
You've captured the essence of it?
Yeah, it's like, boom, you nailed it. And in American communication, there's a big emphasis on clarity.
Getting straight to the point.
Exactly. No rambling, just say what you mean.
And hit the nail on the head. It really embodies that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You haven't just communicated the idea, you've done it with precision.
Okay, now this next one, it really paints a picture on my mind. Bite the bullet.
Ooh. Yeah, this one's a bit more intense.
Yeah, it sounds kind of painful, actually.
Well, the origin of the phrase is pretty interesting, actually, and a little grim.
Tell me more.
So it supposedly comes from, get this, soldiers in the battlefield.
Oh, no?
Yeah, back before anesthesia was common, if they needed surgery, they would literally bite down on a bullet
Wow, I can't even imagine.
to help deal with the pain.
Oh, wow.
So it's come to represent facing a difficult situation head-on, even if it's unpleasant.
So it's about courage, basically.
Definitely having that grit to push through something tough.
Even if it hurts, yeah.
Exactly, and I think it also reflects that American no pain, no gain mentality.
Like, you got to work hard to achieve your goals.
Exactly, and sometimes that means embracing the difficult stuff.
So, like, if you have to have a tough conversation with someone.
You just gotta bite the bullet and get it over with.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's about accepting the inevitable and moving forward.
Okay, so the next phrase on our list is burn the midnight oil.
This one's relatable, I think.
Especially for us, right?
Definitely. All those late nights working on a project, trying to meet deadlines.
I think we've all been there at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Burning that midnight oil.
And it kind of speaks to, I don't know, a work ethic, I guess.
Yeah, a dedication to getting things done, even if it means sacrificing sleep.
And you see this theme a lot in American stories, right?
Oh, yeah. Those rags to riches stories where success comes from pure hard work.
But of course, you got to have balance, right?
Of course, work-life balance is important, but the phrase itself...
It definitely highlights that admiration for those who go the extra mile.
Exactly. That willingness to push yourself to achieve something.
Okay, now for one of the more playful phrases, I think. Let the cat out of the bag.
Oh, yeah. This one always makes me chuckle.
It's about, like, accidentally revealing a secret, right?
Exactly. Think of it like a surprise gone wrong.
Oh, yeah, like you were trying to keep something hidden.
And then whoops, the cat's out of the bag.
And everyone knows.
And the imagery is so vivid, right?
You could just picture this cat, like, suddenly escaping.
Yeah, it's a really fun way to describe that kind of situation.
And you definitely don't want to be the one who lets the cat out of the bag.
Especially if it's a big secret.
Okay, so next up, we have The ball is in your court.
Ah, a classic phrase, especially in a work setting.
I hear this one all the time.
It basically means it's someone else's turn to take action.
Or make a decision.
Exactly. You've done your part. Now it's up to them.
And I think this speaks to a very American value, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. That emphasis on individual responsibility.
Taking initiative, making things happen.
Right. You've been given the information, the tools. Now what are you going to do with it?
And it's a subtle way of saying, all right, it's your move.
Exactly. What's your next step?
Okay, now we're getting to throw in the towel.
Okay, yeah, this one has a more somber tone, maybe.
It's about giving up, right?
Yeah, admitting defeat.
And the video, it connects this phrase to boxing.
Of course, that image of a fighter literally throwing their towel into the ring to signal they can't go on.
So there's definitely a sense of like acknowledging defeat.
But there's also a sense of pragmatism, wouldn't you say?
Like knowing when to stop fighting a losing battle.
Exactly. It's not always about winning every fight.
Sometimes it's about choosing your battles wisely. Yeah.
Recognizing when it's time to move on to something more productive.
What stands out to you about this one? I guess it's realizing when you're, like, banging your head against a wall.
Right, when it's time to step back and reevaluate the situation.
Instead of just, like, pushing forward blindly.
Exactly. Sometimes it's more strategic to retreat and regroup.
Okay, so next on our list of American English idioms, we have cost an arm and a leg.
Oh, yeah. This one's a classic, especially with how things are these
It's
days.
got to be about something expensive, right?
It's basically a way of saying something is ridiculously pricey.
Like way beyond your budget.
Exactly. And it often comes with a bit of humor or exaggeration.
It really drives home the point, though.
Oh, absolutely. It's like saying, this thing is going to break the bank.
And I can definitely relate to this one, especially lately.
Everything seems to be costing an arm and a leg these days.
I know, right? It's like, do I really need this, or do I need my limbs more?
It's a good example of how language evolves with the times, though.
In what way?
Well, the sentiment remains the same. Something is super expensive.
But the context can change. Like what we consider expensive now versus like 50 years ago.
Exactly. What might have cost an arm and a leg back then might be pretty affordable now.
Okay, that makes sense.
Language is always adapting to reflect our current reality.
Okay, moving on to under the weather.
Ah, yes. A much more gentle phrase.
I use this one all the time.
It's a polite way to say you're not feeling 100%.
Yeah, like I'm a little sick, but I'm not like bedridden or anything.
Exactly. It downplays your discomfort a bit.
It's almost like saying, I'm not feeling great, but I'll be fine.
And that might be another cultural cue, actually.
Oh, how so?
Well, Americans tend to value independence and self-reliance.
So even if you're sick, you don't want to be a burden to others.
Right. You try to soldier on as best you can.
It's like, I can handle this.
Exactly. Even if you're feeling a bit rough around the edges.
Okay, and finally, the last phrase on our list, piece of cake.
Now this one has a much more positive vibe.
It always makes me think of something easy and enjoyable.
Like no effort required.
Yeah, just smooth sailing.
It really embodies that American can-do spirit, doesn't it?
That sense that anything is possible.
Exactly, and it minimizes the difficulty of a task.
It's like saying, this is going to be a breeze.
Or bring it on. I got this.
So we've gone through these 10 phrases, and they seem pretty common, but what you're saying is there's this whole other level to them.
Oh, absolutely. There's a deeper cultural meaning behind a lot of these idioms.
Like they give us a glimpse into American values and how people think.
Exactly. They're not just random expressions. They're rooted in cultural norms and history.
I never thought about it like that before.
It's what makes idioms so fascinating to study.
So these phrases aren't just about learning vocabulary, it's about understanding cultural nuances too.
Precisely. It's like having a key to unlock a deeper understanding of how people communicate and interact.
For instance, hit the nail on the head and the ball is in your court.
They both point to that American emphasis on direct communication and individual responsibility.
Well, bite the bullet and burn the midnight oil.
Those seem to celebrate hard work and resilience, that ability to push through challenges.
And even phrases like, let the cat out of the bag, or piece of cake.
They can reveal cultural attitudes towards secrets or the perception of difficulty.
It's amazing how much meaning can be packed into these seemingly simple phrases.
It's like they're little windows into the American psyche, like you said earlier.
But how can someone actually use this knowledge?
That's a great question. Knowing the definitions is just the first step.
It's like having the ingredients but not knowing the recipe, right?
Exactly. True fluency comes from understanding the context and when it's appropriate to use these phrases.
So it's not just about knowing what they mean, it's about knowing when and how to use them.
Precisely. Like, take bite the bullet, for example.
Okay.
It might be perfect for a casual conversation with colleagues, but it could sound too informal for a presentation to senior management.
It all depends on the situation and the audience.
Exactly. It's about understanding the unwritten rules of communication, so to speak.
Reading the room, like you said before.
Right. And by being aware of those nuances, you can avoid potential misunderstandings and communicate more effectively.
So what advice would you give to someone who wants to learn more about these kinds of phrases?
Well, immersion is key. Surround yourself with the language and culture.
Okay, like how?
Watch movies, listen to music, read books, talk to native speakers.
So experiencing the language in its natural habitat.
Exactly, not just studying it from a textbook.
You'll start to pick up on those subtle cues and understand how these phrases are used in real life.
And gradually, you'll start to incorporate them into your own communication naturally.
It's like learning a secret handshake that allows you to connect with the culture on a deeper level.
That's a great way to put it. It's about going beyond the surface level and really immersing yourself in the language.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I'm seeing these phrases with new eyes.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. These idioms often get overlooked, but they really do offer a wealth of cultural knowledge.
Okay, so before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap of those 10 American English phrases we discussed.
Sounds good. So we started with break the ice for those initial moments of a conversation.
And then we had hit the nail on the head for expressing accuracy, like you said, getting straight to the point.
And then there was bite the bullet for facing those tough situations head on.
Burn the midnight oil for all those late nights working or studying.
Let the cat out of the bag for those accidental slip-ups when you reveal a secret.
The ball is in your court, which highlights personal responsibility, like it's your turn to make a move.
Throw in the towel for admitting defeat and knowing when to move on.
Cost an arm and a leg for describing something that's way too expensive.
Under the weather for when you're feeling a bit sick but not too serious.
And finally, piece of cake for something that's easy and effortless.
And each of these phrases, they offer a glimpse into American culture, the values, the communication style, even the humor.
It's a reminder that language is more than just words. It's a reflection of our shared experiences.
Absolutely. And by understanding these idioms, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the culture they represent.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive.
It really has. I feel like we've uncovered some hidden gems in the English language.
So, as we wrap things up, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listener with today?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey through these everyday expressions.
I know, right? And it's funny because I never really paid much attention to these idioms before.
You just use them without thinking, right?
Exactly. But now it's like, oh, there's actually a whole story behind each one.
A little glimpse into the American way of thinking.
And it makes me wonder about idioms in other languages.
Yeah, what can we learn about other cultures by studying their unique expressions?
So as we wrap up this deep dive into American English idioms, is there anything else you want to add?
I think the main takeaway here is to appreciate the power of language.
It's more than just words on a page, right?
Exactly. It's a reflection of our history, our values, our humor.
It's like a key to unlocking a deeper understanding of a culture.
And that's what makes language so fascinating to study.
It's not just about grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's about bridging those cultural gaps through shared understanding.
This has been an incredible journey through the world of American English idioms.
And I think we've both learned a lot along the way.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on how language shapes our understanding of the world.
And how those seemingly simple phrases can reveal so much about who we are.
So to wrap things up, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I'd say pay attention to the idioms in your own language. What do they tell you about your culture?
It's a challenge, isn't it? To step back and really examine the words we use every day.
Yeah, but it's a rewarding one, I think.
It's like looking at your own reflection in a new light.
Exactly. You might be surprised by what you discover.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in.
We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of American English idioms.
And if you have any favorite idioms or phrases from your own language, we'd love to hear them.
Share them with us, and let's keep the conversation going.
Until next time, Keep exploring the fascinating world of language and culture.